Good morning, everyone. It's about 7:30 on a Saturday morning. Today is the day we drive off and pick up the engine. So it's a couple of hours drive back and forth to get the engine and bring it back to the hangar. So I'll be doing that today and possibly hang the engine on the plane. I've taken a week off to just take my time with the whole process, make sure everything is done up right. It has been about 10 years since I initially put the engine on the plane. So I want to make sure I do it right and take my time before I go do the first flight again. So there's lots to do. I hope you stick around till the end. At the very end of this video, we're going to go over all the costs as it relates to this specific build. So you'll know how much money I spent, and maybe this can help you in your build. All right, so stick around. And if you haven't already done so, please do subscribe. Your support is always appreciated. All right, so let's get to it. So we got to it, and here I am sitting here a week later to tell you that everything is fine and the engine is on the plane. I figure I'd cut to the chase right away. There's no suspense here. The thumbnail for this video probably has a picture of my engine hanging on my plane, and I've been posting on social media along the way while I did the work this past week, showing that everything seems to be fine. There are a couple of things that I have to complete before I get the plane in the air, and we'll get to those at the very end. It's not a big deal. Okay, so now let's do a recap of what I did during the week. So here we can see the engine, and we can also see that there are some covers missing on the a couple of the cylinders. The reason behind that is because two of the push rods were slightly off spec. They were a little shorter than the person assembling the engine wanted them to be, which is fine. So I ordered them from Kadex. They shipped them overnight, and I had them in my hand within like a day. And I guess that's what overnight means. So I had them in my hand the next day. And so when I went off to see the AME who assembled the engine, then he had them in place, put them in, took all of like maybe 5 or 10 minutes put together, and we were off. It took us a couple of hours to go back and forth, as I had mentioned earlier. Once we got to the hangar, it was a simple 20-minute process to take the engine off the truck with the hoist, of course, and then attach it to the dynofocal mount that I've got. The engine rubbers that I use, the bushings that I use, are Lords. That's what I got with the kit when I bought it. So it was a quick and easy installation. All right, so it's the next morning. Yesterday we hung the engine on the plane. It took all of 10 minutes and called it a day after that. So there's no video on that, unfortunately, but it literally took 10 minutes of time. Came in this morning and spent the last hour putting in 4 cotter pins because it's next to impossible. Anybody who's done this before knows that those cotter pins, getting them in there is quite difficult. So I got that done. Once I got the cotter pins out of the way, it was time to put on the baffling. I had already primed and painted it, prepped it, ready to go on the engine. Now, this is important. I've got a plenum that goes over the baffling. It's important to note that I'm going off from what the way the setup was before, in that I'm not sure if I've ever shown it in any of the other videos. I had lots and lots of internal baffling under the plenum that would guide air into a certain direction, a certain way, to make sure that I had the optimal cooling on my cylinders. When I took the baffling off, I decided I'm not going to put this back in. I'm kind of starting over from scratch. I've got a lot more experience with the plane now. I know how it operates, or how things cool down, how it is on the ground if I'm there too long, and how it is in the air during climb and straight and level flight. So I decided to start from scratch. So that is something I'm going to have to deal with once I get the plane in the air. The problem is, it's minus 20 degrees Celsius right now. So no matter how hot the plane normally is in the summer, I'm not going to experience it for a while. So I expect as the warm weather comes in, I'll be tackling that heating issue. But for now, baffling goes in and comes together, and then the plenum will sit on top of it. Next up, time to attach the magneto harness onto the spark plugs. The spark plugs were already installed by the AME and torqued to the proper foot-pounds, which I believe off the top of my head is 18 foot-pounds per spark plug in my particular case. Then it was on to install the cylinder head temp or CHT probes. The engine oil breather tube on my plane gets connected directly to an ASA oil separator or an anti-splat oil separator. What that does is it collects any excess oil that comes out the breather tube, goes through the unit, then reconnects into the engine so the oil gets fed there, and any excess or air passes out the bottom of the unit. I attached the alternator. Yes, it is a huge alternator, but it's the one that came with the engine and I've been using it since. Eventually I'll switch off to, I don't know, a better sized one. Something that takes up less space on the engine. I then finished up by adding the carburetor on the engine and adding the prop and the exhaust. And that's where I left off for the week. I mentioned at the beginning of the video that there are a couple of things that were off or not completed on the plane, minor things. One of them was that I had problems with the air box or the air heat box or carburetor heat, whichever way you want to name it, in that it was damaged and worn. So I had to do some repairs on that. I gave it up to my buddy Claude and he did some welding for me and got that there. So I need to install that part this weekend. And also I've got to add the spinner on it. And I was missing some lock washers to complete the installation for the exhaust. So that's pretty much all I have to do, and then connect the wires, the ground and the power onto the battery, and then it's off to flying. At the beginning of this, I said that for the week, the weather was horrible, cold and all that stuff, but they're calling for nice weather this Saturday. So I'm going away to Florida next week. So if you see me around Orlando, I'll be at Disney at a conference. But, or if you got a plane and you want to give me a ride, I'd love to get into an Icon. If anybody's got one, I'd be more than happy to do that, later in the evening or Thursday morning type of thing. So I will be in Florida, and then the rest of the flight testing, if I can't do it this Saturday, will happen in a few weeks. But I'll make sure I keep you updated on that. All right, so the part that you've all been waiting for. I had to put my glasses on because I'm going to end up reading this off of a piece of paper. So sorry about the reflection from the light in the room. So the big total, and now some of the major things that are included in here is the camshaft, the lifters, a couple of push rods, all the bearings were replaced. A crank seal, one gear assembly, brand new high compression pistons. I've got the 9.5 to 1, whereas they were 8.5 to 1s before. Brand new rings, brand new piston pins, brand new rocker pins, all the gaskets included, and the total, including paying for the AME who assembled the whole engine, put it all together, and guided me through the process. I'm looking at $6,891. Pretty damn impressive. Not a lie. I've got about just roughly about, I don't know, 6K and another K for mechanic. I don't know. There's a balancing. I am going to include a list at the bottom. I'm trying to finish this off tonight. It's late in the evening. I want to publish this for tomorrow morning, or you're seeing it now, I guess, if you're watching the whole video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add all the items that I ordered from Kadex. Thanks, Doug, number one. You've helped me quite a bit through this, and I really appreciate your help. I'm going to put the list down below. Now, there are a couple of things that you have to keep in mind. I think I mentioned it, throughout the other videos in this specific series. First, I did a lot of the work myself. So the initial rough estimate for this was, hey, it's going to cost you $25,000-$30,000 to do. That was it. And to me, I was done with aviation at that point. I didn't have $30,000 to spend on an engine at this point in my life. I did a lot of the work myself. The engine was taken apart. It was cleaned. It was verified. If something wasn't, up to par in the cleaning process or something, it was redone. It took weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks of work to get the case perfect and make sure that everything was fine. Anything that didn't fall into spec was replaced. So essentially, again, what I've got on the engine is the case is the original case. I've got the crankshaft, which was fine and flawless, in there. I've got the original outside jugs and everything else, with the valves and everything was original because there was only a couple hundred hours on those pistons since overhaul. But I decided to change out sorry, not the pistons, but the cylinders. But I decided to change out the pistons because they were the spec, and I'm going to sell them off to somewhere. I'll list it somewhere else. I'm sure somebody with an airboat will want all this stuff. So keep an eye out for that on Facebook Marketplace somewhere. But I did a lot of the work myself. It took a lot of time. And then when the process came to rebuild, the AME said, I don't like these pins. Okay, so I had to order pins. I was back and forth, getting parts and delivering parts. And remember, where I picked up the engine is a couple hours, total to go and come back each time. But still well worth it. So, I probably spent a couple $100 on gas alone. For those of you in the States, this is Canadian dollars. So, knock 40% off of that, I guess, and that's what you would pay, I guess buying parts in Canada or possibly in the States. I really don't know. I cost it out in Canada. So, I did special things where on ForeFlight, I've got the parts manual for the lycoming 0360 engine. And instead of, say, buying a gasket kit at $300, I went part by part by part and specifically selected all the gaskets that absolutely 100% just applied to me. For those of you who don't know this, when you buy a gasket kit, it kind of fits all the different 0360 type engines. So you have some left over. Well, that's $5 here, $2 there, $6 here, $3 there. And in the end, that's an oil filter. Which, by the way, also includes 2 oil filters. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this. I'll answer all the questions you have here, Facebook, wherever it is, as openly and honestly as I can. Is this for everyone? No. I suggest if you got the bucks, send it to a shop. Just get it done and get it back, and that's it. But there were a lot of things where everything was a delay. I got lucky with the pistons because they happened to be at Alberta Aero out near here that I mentioned in the last video. They happened to have them in stock. Some of the parts I had to wait weeks for them to come in. If I was waiting for like a camshaft, the camshaft, I had to wait a couple of weeks for that to come in. So you got to have the patience to do it. It took several months to get this done. Would I do it again? I don't think so. It's kind of rough, but I learned a hell of a lot about engines now. I can say that today I know a lot more about, putting an engine together than I did, a few months back, where I was, I think for the last 44 years of my life in aviation, or 45 years, and I can't remember, that this is the first time I really have a good understanding of what's happening in the engine. So that's it. Thanks for joining me. Don't forget to read all the stuff down below that I'm going to put. I'm going to put itemized details of all the stuff. If you don't see it when this video is first coming out, it's probably going to take me a day or two, so you can come back and see the entire list, but I plan on putting it there. I promise I will. All right, so we'll see you next time, and I'll keep you updated as soon as I go flying.